Welcome to the Genealogy Gems podcast, providing quick and innovative ways to make the absolute most out of your research time and creative ideas for sharing and displaying your family history. I'm your host, Louise Cooke. Hello and welcome to Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 127. Now, as you listen to this, I am probably going to be chowing down a Cornish pasty at the Earl's Court tube station on my way to speak at Who Do You Think You Are live in London. But being across the pond certainly won't stop me from podcasting. So in today's show, I'm going to be bringing you a little touch of Britain with my interview with historian and UK TV presenter Nick Barratt, who I got a chance to sit down with at the recent RootsTech 2012 conference in Salt Lake City. Also in this episode, you're going to be hearing from Carol Rice and Valerie Elkins about the Story at Home conference, which is all about telling the story of your family, and it sounds like an amazing event. And you're also going to hear from a Genealogy Gems listener who I ran into at the RootsTech Expo Hall. So sit back, enjoy the show, and I will see some of you very soon in class here in London. Introduce yourself. Tell our audience who you are.
I'm Carol Rice.
And of course, I've got longtime listener Valerie Elkins here. Hi, Valerie.
Hi.
And Carol, we were just chatting here at the booth, and you've got an event coming up, and I really wanted you to tell my listeners yourself, because you obviously have a passion for what you're talking about. Tell us what's coming up.
Well, I do love it. It's the Story at Home conference. We're going to hold it down at the Temple Square in Salt Lake City at the Conference Center, and the Joseph Smith Memorial Building is where we'll actually be holding the venue for our event. But my goal is to bring together all these people that love storytelling. Because of what I've done with my business, I've done a lot of visiting at genealogy shows. I've done storytelling events and sat on the board for several different storytelling organizations. And then I've also done a lot with the blogging community, because they've been such a beautiful megaphone and they have the same demographic, that mommy, who's at home, who's still teaching the values and trying to do those things within her own family there with those little kids. And it's a good time to start family history when they're little. So anyway, just going around to these blogging events, these family history events, these storytelling events, and seeing that there was a common denominator, a common thread through all of these groups, and that really truly they love the power of story. Just the impact that the story of how they found their research, how they came across something on a trip in a cemetery. They're compelling, neat stories, but oftentimes a genealogist needs help sharing that story in a way that engages other people. And so I just thought that by bringing together all of these different groups, that we could all kind of focus on that foundation that we have and the love for story, and help each other in lots of different ways. Help us get the word out, help us become better storytellers, become better researchers.
So again, tell us the name and the date of your event.
It's a Story at Home, and it is March 9th and 10th in Salt Lake City.
Wonderful. And it's a 2-day event, so workshops, things, how can they register or get more information?
They can go to www.cherishbound.com. There's a banner right there that says Story at Home that will click and take you to the event website, and they can go and register and see all the presenters and see all the classes. Friday night we have a really fun thing called a Family Story Slam, and there will be a pre-show with a really popular group called the Lower Lights that will be a great band to get the night going. But a story slam is kind of improv storytelling, so it's a little like karaoke, where you sit there and you think, oh my goodness, she could bomb, and you can't help but pay attention, or you sit there and think, oh, she was amazing, that was exciting to be a part of. Either way, it only lasts for 5 minutes, so then the next person gets up. But there's just all kinds of fun things. There will be an iTell booth where people can go in and record their stories or conduct an interview and get a free DVD of that interview or that story. There will be a tech cafe that will be open the entire time, and a vendor show for all of the presenters where they'll have their books and tapes and CDs and everything you can get your hands on. So lots of different elements of the conference besides just the workshops and the main stage presentations that are there for people to enjoy.
Wonderful. So if we've been collecting some stories for a while, been getting some data, but we're not quite sure how to tell them in compelling ways, boy, you're really going to see it in action and then learn some of the techniques yourself. So hopefully, sounds like you might be doing this on a annual basis, but why not be a part of this one? Is this your inaugural event?
This is our inaugural event, yeah. You'll want to say you were there then.
That's right. Well, Carol, Valerie, wonderful to see you, and we'll have all the information in the show notes of this episode. Thanks so much for stopping by the booth.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
Answer me a question, love, I pray. My heart for thee is pining day by day. Oh, answer me, my dearest, answer true. Hold me close as you were wont to do. Whisper once again the story old, the dearest, sweetest story ever told. Whisper once again the story old, the dearest, sweetest story ever told. Tell me, do you love me? Tell me softly, sweetly, oh.
I'm here at my booth at RootsTech 2012 and just had Betty Wynn come up to my booth. She's a longtime listener and we got a chance to meet face to face. Hi, Betty.
Hi, how are you, Lisa?
I am doing great and would love to have you. We were just talking about 10 million things. What are we going to pick first? But tell us how long you've been listening to the show, because did you know that today is our 5-year anniversary for this show?
Well, I've been listening for about 2 of the 5 years.
Wow.
And I discovered that when I became a recipient of an iPod. And
to open a whole new world, right?
It did, because many times I'm doing tasks that I have to do online, and I need something to block out all the other noise. So instead of just listening to music or something, I put podcast on. And of course I like the genealogy and any tips and experience from other people. So when I found your particular show, I downloaded all I could put on there, and I just listened to them over and over again, because there are parts and things on there that I pick up each time I hear.
Do you find that, because I've had other listeners say that sometimes, we hear what we can hear at that time, and then sometimes our own experience continues to develop in our research, and then you go back and listen and you're hearing something completely additional.
Exactly. I mean, at the time I'm listening, I'm looking for something that pertains to a location. I'm going to be listening for things that are going to be more geared toward geographical areas, and others it's talking about the census records or other things on adoption or on some obscure piece of something that's peculiar to that particular area of geography or a particular line of work, maybe for coal miners or those kinds of things. So I'm going back and looking through all of the information I can find, and then I listen again, because I think I remember hearing something on one of the podcasts. So I just sit and I'll listen, and then I'll make a note, and then I can go back and do more research on it. But last year, when the Google Toolbox, when I heard you last year here, and you were talking about the Google Toolbox, and they'd just come out with a book and all of that, I had no idea you could do the things with Google that you can do, and that book is absolutely golden. It's worth its weight in gold.
Thank you. Well, now, what is something that you either heard or picked up from the book, and you went, I got to try that, and it seemed to make something happen for you?
Well, when I was looking for where my father has a son that he had outside of marriage in World War II. And I was able to trace back in the census records to locate the address, but then I used Google search to get an actual look at the house.
Oh, the Google Earth.
Yes, I looked at that to see the actual picture of the house where they had lived during the war at that time, and it was just phenomenal to get that.
Adds a whole new dimension, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. It put some legs on it. It made it more real.
Yeah.
And then I was able to go back to that area doing research through there in California through those records to find out that my half brother's mother's her whole the way she traveled and did her thing and then wound up, he's in Vancouver, and I've reached out and I haven't been able to get him to respond, but he's about 5 years older than I am, so we're running out of time, but it's something that it's been an eye-opener because it's been like the mystery of all time, but to have all of those extra pieces, each piece makes the next piece a little easier to find or gives you a new direction, and it's awesome to have that.
Absolutely. And of course, the more you find, then you maybe have something that you can put together the next time you reach out to him and say, well, at least let me share this with you so you have it. And I think sometimes that can break the ice a little bit.
Well, it is, but there's always been the stigma of an illegitimacy, and so we've got to come past all of that, because as we get older, we need to reach out to those siblings that were born outside of a marriage we don't know what those circumstances were, and we need to give them a piece of closure and a continuity of family. He knows he has a father. He's named after my dad.
Oh, wow.
So if he knows this, and maybe he'd like to have a picture, or maybe he'd like to know the health issues that were involved. I mean, in this day and age, we all need to have that background, and I think it would give him a piece. But I've always wanted a big brother, and I have one. I just never been able to see him. I want to see what he looks like. That's the other thing.
It is surprising. Oh gosh, even looking at pictures of ancestors or meeting a cousin finally after all these years, I'm always amazed how there's the nose, there's the eyes,
exactly.
Or there's the sense of humor. Sometimes I think that must be passed down by DNA, don't you?
It does. To find out that my great-great-grandmother was a midwife, and over 1,100 children born in Maury County, Tennessee, were delivered by her.
Wow.
So, finding out those pieces of things, like, wow, who would have thought? She's only 4'3" and mean as a snake.
Yeah,
but, to think that she would do, to do that, because on the birth certificates, it will register the name of the midwife.
Think how many documents she must be on.
Absolutely, if you just knew who to look at, who knows what may index later about, in that area. I mean, there's so many areas and ways you can index now to be able to find that data.
Well, now finally, here you are at RootsTech 2012. Have you taken any classes where you did walk out and go, oh, that's a keeper, I'm going to try that when I get home?
Absolutely. Looking at some additional things on how to compose all of this data that I've accumulated into a readable and searchable, both online and offline, pictures and the source documents, so that there is some meat behind it. It's not just word of mouth. I also work with the DAR, and so there's an awful lot of information that needs to be included so that all of our patriots can be recognized, because there are a lot of them out there that served and are not listed. And so but they got to be real tight when they do that. So you need every bit of help you can get to get all of those pieces together.
Fabulous. So you've been finding some answers along the way. And do you have any classes pegged for tomorrow that you're looking forward to?
I have it on the website for RootsTech. Has been really great because it gives.
Oh, have you been using the app?
Yes. See,
Great.
Here it is.
Yeah.
It comes right up, and when it comes up, then you can, when you signed up for your various classes, it'll give you your schedule, and it will tell you all about what you're doing today.
Don't you love that?
And for tomorrow. And so you have all of these things out there. I think the DNA pieces are another thing that I'm real excited about. I need to understand it better. So.
Boy, and if you ever did manage to make that contact with the brother, then there's that male line DNA that
yes,
you might be able to work with.
It's a whole new world out there.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with that. Thank you so much for stopping by and saying hi to the audience.
It's just great to put a face with your voice, and it's, I enjoy the podcast so much and your website, and it's been a goal of mine to do that and to get you today, because you weren't here available yesterday, but today I'm like a hot dog. So, you have a groupie.
Thank you, sweetheart. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I know I have listeners all around the world, but I have a feeling that you UK listeners are going to be very interested in who my guest is today. I want to welcome to the show Nick Barratt. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Thank you so much.
Wow, I heard the rumor that you had somehow Little Bird told you RootsTech 2012 was happening and you jumped on a plane and came over here. Is that true?
It's pretty true, yes. 19 hours of travel, straight into the 1940 census dinner, although I missed the dinner part of it, which is most unfortunate.
Oh gosh, we need to get you food.
Oh, yeah. Hungry. Well, I haven't slept since.
Yeah. Oh.
So excuse me if I appear a bit wired, but I've just had such a fantastic time. It's inspiring to be here. We don't have anything like it in the UK. We've got the Who Do You Think You Are live show, which is great fun, brings everyone together, 15,000 footfall, great. However, this is cutting edge. This is the future of genealogy. It's great to see the developers mixing with the participants, sharing ideas, having ideas challenged on stage, some inspirational keynote speeches. All of it needs to come back to the UK. It really does. There's so much that we can learn from what's going on here.
Well, it's interesting because I went and spoke at Who Do You Think You Are last year for the first time, and I did some technology topics, and they kind of said, I think we might want to continue with this. So I'm heading back. I'll be doing several of them, Google Earth being one. And I was just surprised because in many ways, you're so far ahead of us in terms of the television, that's going on, and the fact that you're getting the masses to really get excited about family history. Why is it that maybe the technology has lagged a little bit behind as far as merging together in family history?
It's a really difficult conundrum because Who Do You Think You Are came out at exactly the time when we had a large increase in the number of data sets available. So in many ways it was always there. But the creativity seems to be driven far more by the state. I mean, don't forget, the major company that came over and started the internet revolution in the UK was Ancestry. So it's always been in the vanguard of US technology coming across. Bright Solid obviously has now become a major player in the UK, and it's crossing over to the US as well. They've announced that here at RootsTech. But I think we like the old-fashioned way. It's a very British thing to do. British bureaucracy, pen and paper, quill and parchment. I think it does take a little bit longer to get up to speed. But that's not to say we're getting there. There's been a huge debate about the impact of technology and digitisation in the UK. And it's having a profound impact on the archives themselves. So I think there's this... It's almost a fear that the more you digitise, the more you're going to stop people coming into those archives. Now, we're under great funding pressure in the UK at the moment, as indeed are most places, and the archives are in a very difficult place. They're having to embrace new technology and open up their collections online, which is great. We all benefit from it. They get some revenue stream. However, as people stop coming in person, their footfall decreases. And the funders are going, well, look, why do you need a search room anymore? So it's a catch-22. That's why I think there might be a little bit of ambivalence towards really going for the new technology. But there are groups that are trying. I represent FreeBMD, which is a transcription project. We put as many records as possible online. We've got an army of transcribers around the world, double keying it, so it's pretty accurate stuff. And we believe that the technology has to lead the way. So we want to set up a charity and have a whole series of open source transcription tools, a whole series of apps that can be developed. This is why I'm so keen to meet people here, because they want to integrate.
The archives continues to be the preservation hub. They become, they are the one source. But in a way, something like FreeBMD is more suited for the distribution. I know we all heard an archivist, sit around and go, oh gosh, there's more people coming in the door, and now it's a little worrisome, but I would think that the partnership seems natural.
I think it's the partnership that needs to be on the right level. So we need to find a balance between acknowledging the existence of the commercials and the money they bring to the sector. That is fundamental. We need that money. We need their technology and expertise. We also need to recognise the volunteer elements who can produce some fantastic transcription data, but also the need for the archives to keep people coming in. There is a happy medium somewhere in the middle whereby we can have a paywall perhaps in place at the point of viewing the images, pay-per-view almost, but the transcriptions and indexes are free to attract people in. That benefits both the archives and, of course, the commercial entities. And then they can start to develop new tools to attract people to their subscription models. So you can manipulate the data, add in third-party content, for example, do some really creative stuff with audio and video. Personal archiving is the way I think it should be going. And that then frees up the archives to do their digitisation work and become experiential centres. You go to an archive not because you want to find a parish register, but because you've found it already. You want to find what life was like, and you want the interpretation and the skills of the archivist.
Context.
Exactly, the relevance to make it personal to you. That's what they're there to do.
And that's really the brain trust, is those archivists, the historians, walking around those halls who know those stories. Now, I have to say, on a totally different subject, I've been seeing you on YouTube. You seem to be a bit of a just kind of off on your own doing some things. Tell us about what you've been doing on YouTube.
Really? That's news to me. I mean, we stream our podcast on YouTube. I've had the great fortune to interview some wonderful historians, Dan Cooke, Jonathan Foyle. I also interviewed the last survivor on the Titanic when I was writing the book Lost Voices. Sadly, she passed away a few months after the interview, but we've managed to get a lot of content there, and obviously with 2012 being the centenary, that's going to be quite relevant.
Are you going to be involved in some of those activities?
I am, yes.
Yeah?
I've got a few talks and tours lined up in April. Some in the UK, some in Ireland. It's one of those interesting moments where, as with the First World War and the last survivors disappear, it stops being living and relevant. It suddenly becomes a piece of history. And it's very interesting with a lot of stuff that's going on in Europe. We've had this big maritime disaster in Italy. I don't know why I'm laughing. It's a terrible tragedy.
No, I know,
but these things still come around.
It's almost uncanny that it happened when it did, and that it's just
100 years. There's a perennial fascination with the sea and with survivor stories and who should we blame. It's at the heart of the whole mystery behind the Titanic.
And some of the responses, I heard a lot of people talking on television comparing the responses of people in today's disaster with the way they handled it, as in women and children first, that type of thing. I mean, and it's really representative of our culture, and you can only learn that by comparing the past, can't you?
You need those examples.
Yeah.
You need those human stories, because that way you can empathise and say, how would I react in that circumstance? That's, I think, the crucible of how these events become perennially interesting. And the further back they go, the less relevant they become to us almost. They just become another story to tell, and there's nothing more we can find out about the Titanic. Well, I think there is. I think there's an awful lot we can still learn from these big events from the early part of the 20th century. They still echo through the ages.
And it's certainly an event that we share, as in the US and the UK, on both sides.
It was great doing the research, looking at the comparison between the boards of inquiry. The one in the US was really quite vitriolic. Quite rightly so, given the number of people that died.
Sure.
The British one was a lot more of a cover-up. It was almost like, the Americans have done their job, we'll just tie up the last bits and change our code of conduct. It was amazing, looking at the two different...
So history is all about, again, the perspective that you're coming from. And as you read it, you're like, ooh, okay, you really do have to know the context of that person to understand their interpretation. Do you find that... Well, first of all, tell us the name of the book and how people can get it, because this is going to become more and more of a topic and they're going to want to learn more about it.
Well, the book is called Lost Voices from the Titanic.
Okay.
And there's a US version that we printed, Palgrave Macmillan. They're publishing that. You should be able to get that through their website or through Amazon. And it's really a collection of some of the survivor stories that have been locked away in archives. Now, some of it's been used by historians, but it's been sanitised. It's been used to illustrate a point or try and work out what happened. What I've tried to do is add the narrative, but let the voices speak for themselves, and that gives you a much greater sense of the confusion that occurred. So if you look at the survivor stories from one side of the boat, it seems to be quite orderly and everything's quite sanitised, and we went to the lifeboats and got on and we got away. You come to the other side and no one quite knows what's happening when, and there's this confusion, and that gets you to the heart of it. It was a very difficult book to research, because you did feel like you were transported back to the deck. You do get that how would I react kind of moment. So there's some great moments, but some very difficult moments to read as well.
Absolutely. Well, tell us what 2012 and beyond is going to bring for Nick Barratt. Where are we going to see you? I have to believe you are going to be many places.
Well, no sleep by the sound of it. I can quite happily cope with that for a few more days. But when I get home, we have the run-up to Who Do You Think You Are Live, which will take place the last weekend in February. I'm doing a show before that on house history, so I don't get any free weekends.
That's becoming very popular in the UK, isn't it?
It is, yes. We've hopefully got a few TV shows lined up to do. I say we, as in there's a couple of broadcasters looking at it. It's another flip side of genealogy. Who are you? Well, where did you live? It's a logical thing, really, to do. So I'll be doing that. I hope to get out to New Zealand in June to speak at a conference there. And I'd love to get back in the fall to the US. I've just fallen in love with this particular event, and it's struck me that I haven't been out here as much as perhaps I could or should have done. But there'll be the finishing of the London book, which should be out in time for the Olympics. More of the podcasts. I'm at the moment teaching a course for a university on house history, so I want to expand that a little bit. Yeah, it's a busy year. It's a busy year.
And finally, I am interested about the house history. Obviously, you have much older architecture than we do in many respects. Although, when I renovated a Victorian years ago, that was one of the first things I did. Is I headed down to the library and found in the unidentified picture file a photograph of the house, and they were thrilled to have it identified. But for you in the UK, there's so much more extensive research. What is driving that interest right now, that focus on our residences? Is it just because What Do You Think You Are has been generating our own interest in our own past? What about the places we live?
I think you're spot on with that. It's moved from being genealogy or family history into a much broader spectrum. I call it personal heritage, because you're trying to contextualise who you're related to with where they lived, not just the house but the community, so there's an element of social house history there, but also what jobs did they do. So it's a really nice package. You can't do one in isolation. So local, social, house and family history fused into this much greater understanding. That's going into mainstream education in a whole series of education packages that often support the curriculum and have got the kids infused. So they want to find out about their community. They walk down the street and they go, well, who built that? When was that constructed? And they then talk to the older members of the community. So it's a really nice sort of cross-generational package.
And different families, several different families could share that one common thread, which is we all at some point shared this home.
And we all use the same data sets, 1911 census, indexed by not just the name of the person who lived there, but the house number. You can go back and find out who lived in your house, or where your ancestors lived, is it still standing? Interlay that with map data, have a look at some of the photographs that exist.
Yes.
It's a great resource, and the great thing is, houses don't move. People disappear and go all around the world. Houses stay put, or at least they meant to anyway.
So are you jealous that we're getting the 1940 census?
Yes, hugely. Particularly as we don't have a census in 1941 in the UK.
Oh,
it was never held
okay.
because of the Second World War.
Right.
And the 31 census was destroyed. So we've only got one major data set between here and 1951.
Wow.
So there'll be a big gap. So it's a fantastic project. So I'll be taking the message back home to the UK. Go to the 1940 website, try and get involved as a transcriber. It really is an amazing resource. So for me, it's not just great because it provides historical data, but also it's a great example of collaboration between a commercial entity, archives, and of course family search. It's crowdsourcing, which is something that 3BMD are very keen to promote as well. So hopefully that model will catch on back home as well.
Wonderful. Well, family history, technology, it's all about the connection and the people. Thrilled to have you here. I'm going to let you go eat and then do your thing, and you're going to get to sleep tonight, right?
I hope
Before
so.
You fly out
I hope so.
Okay. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Profile America, Wednesday, February 22nd. One of the first chain stores in the U.S. opened its doors on this date in 1879 in Utica, New York. For generations of Americans, Woolworth's was known simply as the Five and Dime. Inside were wooden floors and display tables stacked with items that sold for up to a dime. Equally famous was the store's lunch counter featuring malted milkshakes. The distinctive red and gold signs were taken down in 1997. Woolworth's was no longer able to compete with the growing number of discount stores, shopping malls, and food courts. Today, Americans have a choice of more than 1.1 million places to shop. Each person in the U.S. spends an average of nearly $12,000 in these stores annually. Profile America is in its 15th year as a public service of the U.S. Census Bureau.
Thanks so much for joining me for Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 127. Boy, I could just sit and talk to Nick Barratt all day long, couldn't you? Interesting guy. I hope you enjoyed that interview. And also a quick note. Wanted to let you know that finally we can say that the PDF ebook is available for my new book, which is How to Find Your Family History in Newspapers. And wanted to let you know that when we released the book on February 18th of 2012, we originally had it as an Adobe digital edition. And that has proved to be a little bit challenging to get it across different platforms. So we've changed it. Now when you go to our Lulu store, it is just the straight PDF. And if by chance you bought the ebook that first day, and you would like the regular PDF version of it because perhaps you use it on an iPad, go ahead and forward your receipt to us at genealogygemspodcast@gmail.com, and we will email that simple PDF straight over to you so that you can get it onto things like the iPad. Because, oh my gosh, that's the hardest part about ebooks is they all operate differently. So we're going to keep it simple and make it a version that hopefully will work on most computing devices. So anyway, the ebook is there. It's available, and we hope you enjoy it. And what the really cool thing about it is that all those links are hyperlinked in the book, and tons of online resources are listed there. So you can just click on them. It'll open up your browser, and you can get straight to the work of finding your family history in newspapers. Thanks so much for listening, friend. I'll talk to you soon.